Hello, my name is Caroline and I'm a psychiatrist resident, and on my channel I share about trauma, family dynamics, fate, and other things. So if you're interested in that, feel free to subscribe. So today I would like to look at the Brooklyn Beckham case. So it's recently been in the news. About a month ago he posted on his Instagram that he did not want to reconcile with his family, and he was sharing a little bit why that was. So I was thinking we could just go through the post together. First of all, just a disclaimer that this doesn't hold any diagnostic value. It's just my personal opinions. So let's see what he says. I've been silent for years and made every effort to keep these matters private. Unfortunately, my parents and their team have continued to go to the press, leaving me with no choice but to speak for myself and tell the truth about only some of the lies that have been printed. So I know some people have reacted to the fact that he's writing on Instagram. He could have gone to BBC or some famous, he could have done like an open interview, earned a lot of money on sharing bad stuff about gossip about his family, or he could have gone to Netflix, etc. I don't think he has done that. Either way, this is more like just an analysis for what we can learn from this in a situation of estrangement, not necessarily going into the details of the Beckhams because I haven't spoken to either parts. So people who are in a dysfunctional family, let's say narcissistic parents, continual gaslighting, and there will continually be framed a reality that's not true. And if you are a child in a narcissistic family, it's really difficult to deal with. You might not be the person who speaks the loudest, and also when you have been through continual gaslighting and there's a continual framing, and especially in this situation, it's a famous family, like everybody knows about them, the camera's always there, more or less, and it feels difficult to break out from. And at the same time, you might continually have people asking, what's going on, what have you done, like blaming them. And finally it just gets enough, tired of questions, tired of everything, let me just publish it, like for everybody to see, and then done. So I probably would say that it isn't the wisest thing to do, but it's quite understandingly that he might feel the need to do that to kind of settle things for himself. Anyway, I don't know which lies have been printed about him. I haven't looked into that. It's not too much of interest for me. Let's continue reading. I do not want to reconcile with my family. I'm not being controlled. I'm standing up for myself for the first time in my life. So this is kind of interesting. Some people are saying like, oh, I'm not being controlled. Means definitely that he is being controlled, and so on. I think the reason that he does mention this, if we say that this is a typical narcissistic or case of a narcissistic family, is that you often are being seen as an extension of the parent, that they will not take seriously what you're saying. If you're disagreeing with them, then it's because of your partner, it's because of your friend. They're not able to accept the person as an individual, but rather as an extension of themselves. So could be a reason why he's mentioning that. He also probably feels that he hasn't been able to stand up for himself before. And it isn't uncommon that problems happen when the son or daughter finds a partner. There can be jealousy, loss of control from the parent's side, loss of control of the narrative, and competition and so on. The timing of everything isn't too weird. So let's continue reading. For my entire life, my parents have controlled narratives in the press about our family. The performative social media posts, family events, and inauthentic relationships have been a fixture of the life I was born into. Recently, I've seen with my own eyes the length that they will go through to place countless lies in the media, mostly at the expense of innocent people, to preserve their own facade. but I believe the truth always comes out. My parents have been trying endlessly to ruin my relationship since before my wedding, and it hasn't stopped. My mom canceled making Nicola's dress in the 11th hour despite how excited she was to wear her design, forcing her to urgently find a new dress. Weeks before a big day, my parents repeatedly pressured and attempted to bribe me into signing away the rights to my name, which would have affected me, my wife, and our future children. They were adamant on me signing before my wedding date because then the terms of the deal would be initiated. My holdout affected the payday, and they have never treated me the same since. Okay, seems to be some challenges. I mean, the idea would be that they would be able to sit down and talk about these things, and it seems like that has been difficult. So there seems to be a lot of issues with the relationship between Brooklyn and Nicola that it's been difficult for the Beckhams to accept that, at least according to Brooklyn. We don't know too much what the Beckhams, their opinions about things and what has really happened. It is interesting though that Nicola and Victoria seem to have a very good relationship in the beginning, and then that kind of changed. Again, it can be seen as a threat to the family union, like to the Beckhams, that Nicola is coming into the mix and now is being part of Brooklyn's, core family instead of the Beckhams, which is a natural process of getting married. That even the Bible says that to leave your father and your mother and cling to your wife, or cleave to your wife. That's the only way to have a healthy family. Now, I don't know too much about this signing away the rights to the name. It is really complicated when your family and name becomes a brand. I mean, somehow you should be allowed to just be family and not having to worry about image and brand and so on. So it's unfortunate. I mean, what else can I say? Let's continue reading. During the wedding planning, my mom went so far as to call me evil because Nicola and I chose to include my nanny Sandra and Nicola's nanny at our table because they both didn't have their husbands. Both of our parents had their own tables equally adjacent to ours. To me, this shouldn't be a big deal. I believe that the bride and the bridegroom, they are the ones who decide who's gonna sit where, and that doesn't seem like a healthy response to call them evil because of this. This is also a common tactic of demonization of the person if they don't follow the manipulation or the control that the parents is used to have. Let's continue reading. The night before wedding, members of my family told me that Nicola was not blood and not family. So it seems like this feud is continually being because of difficulties accepting Nicola, which is sad instead of a family. Anyway, continue. Since the moment I started standing up for myself with my family, I received endless attacks from my parents, both privately and publicly, that were sent to the press on their orders. Even my brothers were sent to attack me on social media before they ultimately blocked me out of nowhere this last summer. My mom hijacked my first dance with my wife, which had been planned weeks in advance, to a romantic love song. In front of our 500 wedding guests, Mark Anthony called me to the stage, where in the schedule was planned to be my romantic dance with my wife, but instead my mom was waiting to dance with me instead. She danced very inappropriately on me in front of everyone. I never felt more uncomfortable or humiliated in my entire life. So obviously, I wasn't there, don't know what happened, and don't know much about Victoria Beckham. But if this is a narcissistic construct of a family, then there will also be poor boundaries. Since the parent might feel ownership of the child, not understand what is appropriate and inappropriate boundaries, and will obviously really struggle when a partner comes into the picture. Doesn't sound like he was very comfortable with this. Doesn't sound like they had the relationship that he would want this to happen at his wedding. And either way, might have been some lack of discretion from Victoria's side. Who knows? Continue reading. We wanted to renew our vows so we could create new memories of our wedding day that brings us joy and happiness, not anxiety and embarrassment. My wife has been consistently disrespected by my family. No matter how hard we have tried to come together as one, my mom has repeatedly invited women from my past into our lives in ways that were clearly intended to make us both uncomfortable. Despite this, we still traveled to London for my dad's birthday and were rejected for a week as we waited in our hotel room trying to plan quality time with him. He refused all our attempts unless it was at his big birthday party, with 100 guests and cameras at every corner. When he finally agreed to see me, it was under the condition that Nicola wasn't invited. It was a slap in the face. Later, when my family traveled to LA, they refused to see me at all. So that's really difficult. Somehow when you do marry, you have to stand up for your wife, you have to stand up with your partner, and things will change with your family. For me, it's actually a little bit surprising that, and I mean, it shouldn't be surprising because they're a public, unfortunately, public family. But it is sad that as soon as you're not present as a birthday, as soon as you are not seen together or you're not in the family photo, then there are gossip, rumors, and so on, that you're not allowed to break apart and be your own unit, kind of with your spouse. But as soon as you're not present in anything, immediately people start speculating, people start asking questions, and so on. It seems like a little bit forced to me and not like necessarily a healthy family construct. So it seems like, at least from what Brooklyn wrote, that he wanted to have quality time with his dad. Obviously, it seems like there are some things under the surface that haven't been cleared, and that has just been going on for too long. And that there's things they need to talk about, and that should obviously not be done at a big party, but rather, one-to-one or in a smaller setting. It is sad if they didn't want Nicola to be present. I mean, somehow then you do force Brooklyn to make a choice, which he shouldn't necessarily have to do, and that choice would have to be his spouse. My family values public promotion and endorsement above all else. Brand Beckham comes first. Family love is decided by how much you post on social media or how quickly you drop everything to show up and post for family photo op, even if it's at the expense of our professional obligations. We've gone out of our way for years to show up and support at every fashion show, every party, and every press activity to show our perfect family. But the one time my wife asked for my mom's support to save displaced dogs during the LA fires, my mom refused. I mean, his mom had the right to refuse. I don't think that necessarily is a big deal, but who knows. So before I read the last part, so we might sit here and read and think, okay, these are some minor things. Why is he complaining? Why is he doing it publicly? I mean, I agree. It's not too wise to do it publicly. It's preferable to do in a smaller setting and having a conversation with your family. But what I do also know that let's say, if this is a case of a narcissistic construct in the family, then it's really difficult to call out the manipulation and control, because it's minor thing continually being enforced. And when you're continually gaslighting or being gaslit, it can be really difficult to kind of summarize all of that make people understand, that I'm not being respected, my wife is not being respected, and you try to formulate what exactly is happening, and it's the lack of communication, the words dropped here and there that you're evil, the facade that's being presented to the outside, portraying like the perfect family, making it really difficult for you to kind of say, hey, by the way, it's not the perfect family. And maybe receiving threats from the family like, oh, but if you say something, you're going to ruin everything, you're going to ruin the brand, it's going to cause financial loss, it's going to be your fault, and so on. So that can be really challenging. Of course, I don't know all the details in this case, like I've kept saying, But it's just my thoughts about it. And this isn't just like if what happens in a big famous family. It can be in a church setting, that you're having to portray the perfect family, and you're told that, you know, you can't say anything because what's people going to think about you? What are they going to think about us? You know, oh, people just knew what you were like. If you're the pastor's kid, like you're gonna ruin my profession, and so on. And continually keeping this perfect facade, where you might be scolded at home or manipulated, controlled, but as soon as you go through the church door, then happy family, smiling, love and hugs, and all this fake facade. And then it's really difficult, like, how do you speak up? You want people to understand, you want people to know, but how do you do that? And I can understand that if this is a situation like that, I can understand he wanted to post it on Instagram, and that was his way of standing up, you know, telling the world. But of course, it's not the best way. I completely agree with that I don't think it was wise. But maybe he doesn't have the best boundaries. Maybe he has never been taught how to have good boundaries, never been allowed to have good boundaries in his family. And this was the thing he came up with. So, to read the last part, the narrative that my wife controls me is completely backwards. I've been controlled by my parents for most of my life. I grew up with overwhelming anxiety for the first time in my life since stepping away from my family. That anxiety has disappeared. I wake up every morning grateful for the life I chose, and have found peace and relief. My wife and I do not want a life shaped by image, press, or manipulation. All we want, peace, privacy, and happiness for us and our future family. So it seems like they have some good wishes. And to be honest, I don't see why it should be a problem for them to step away. If you have a healthy family, I think they would understand that you need some space. And that should be perfectly fine. It shouldn't be like, oh, it's a threat to the brand, you know, what's going to happen, or your partner is not accepted, it's going to hurt our brand. But there should just be room enough or space enough that you can step away. And let's say that the Beckhams give them space, and maybe with time they come around or the relationship gets better. Sometimes having some space helps the relationship, and it might be able to heal. Or if it's a truly toxic, then it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna heal. If it's like a potential narcissistic parent, then there isn't a whole lot of hope to be able to have a healthy relationship, and in many cases it's going to be better to cut that relationship off, unfortunately. Anyway, these were my thoughts regarding the Brooklyn and Nicole Pelz Beckham situation. I hope they figure things out, and I hope that they heal. I hope they get to have their own healthy little family. Thank you for listening.